All right, so get ready, because today we are diving into a situation that is giving me some serious Cloak and Dagger vibes.
Ooh, Cloak and Dagger, huh? I like it.
Yeah, it's intense. So we've got this response letter, right, from a guy named Ron, and let me tell you, he is not holding back.
Not holding back at all.
No, he's been accused of, like, some really serious stuff within a religious organization, which ultimately, I mean, it led to his removal.
Yeah, sounds messy.
It is messy, but here's the thing. Ron's claiming there's a whole other side to this story, like a side that involves cover-ups and power struggles. And get this, he calls it hat evidence.
Okay, had evidence. Now I'm intrigued.
Right. So what I think is so fascinating here is Ron's approach.
Yeah, how so?
I mean, instead of like shying away from these accusations, he's tackling them head on.
Oh, he's going right at him.
Totally. And by doing that, he's dropping these hints that there's a much larger story kind of unfolding, behind the scenes.
Yeah, like he's saying, I dare you to question me.
Exactly. It's like he's got this trump card up his sleeve. And that's where I think this whole hat evidence thing comes in.
Right. It's like that Chekhov's gun, in a play.
Totally.
You know it's going to go off at some point, but it's like when?
Yeah.
And what's the impact going to be?
Exactly. So let's try to, piece together this puzzle. I mean, Ron's facing a whole laundry list of accusations.
Oh, yeah.
But instead of us just like getting bogged down in every single one, let's look for, the bigger themes here. What do you think are the recurring patterns?
Well, I think right off the bat, we see a cluster of accusations all related to Ron's access to information and how he handled it. So, like, there's the claim that he, had inappropriate access to Kip McKeon's computer.
Right, and he totally denies that.
Yeah, he calls it a lie that's been, going around for months.
Yeah.
And then there's the accusation that he shared, like confidential church documents.
Which he admits to.
But justifies, right, by saying that he needed to protect himself and the had evidence.
It's like he's playing this, like a game of information warfare.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It really is like he's using knowledge as both a weapon and a shield.
Totally. And it makes you wonder, what exactly is this hat evidence?
I know, right?
Because he mentions it multiple times.
He does.
But he's very vague about what it actually contains.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what could be so explosive that he's willing to risk, like, everything to protect it?
Right. That's $1 million question. I mean, he does hint at some pretty intense stuff, like heinous, nefarious, even throws in illegal activities that could actually reopen, like, past legal cases.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's like he's suggesting there's this history of bad stuff within this organization that's been, like, completely swept under the rug.
And that leads us to another group of accusations
that
all kind of center around Ron's supposed influence and his role within this organization. So, for example, there's the claim that he, had too much influence on Kip McKeon's resignation.
Oh, interesting.
Which Ron fights back by giving these really specific details.
Oh, really?
Yeah, about his interactions with Kip. And then there's this accusation that he was medically dismissed from the ministry, which he, of course, refutes.
Right.
By saying that he requested a sabbatical because of, stress.
From this whole situation, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting how, he keeps pushing back on whatever narrative is being, presented by the organization.
Yeah.
He's not just, denying it. He's offering another explanation.
Right.
For his actions, and a lot of times he's implicating other leaders, too.
It's like he's saying, if I'm going down, I'm taking everyone with me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which kind of shows just how deep his anger and resentment are.
Right.
Like, he clearly feels betrayed by this organization.
Yeah.
And he's determined to expose what he sees as their hypocrisy and their corruption. I mean, it's a lot.
It is a lot. So we've got information control and power dynamics at play. What other themes are, popping up for you?
Well, there's definitely a financial component to all of this.
Yeah.
Like, Ron's accused of financial misconduct, undermining church contributions, even encouraging members to not give money.
Which he absolutely denies. Right.
He does, yeah.
Saying that his GoFundMe was for personal use.
Right. And he criticizes them for not being transparent about their own finances.
It's like this power struggle,
Oh, absolutely. It always comes down to power in these situations, like who controls the money, who decides how it's spent.
Yeah.
And who benefits, from those decisions. It's a very common thing.
So we've got Ron calling for transparency, and then you've got this organization that wants to maintain, control of the finances.
Right.
And it seems like that conflict has like spilled over into other areas too.
Right, like the accusations that he caused a split in like a sister church, or that he was recruiting members from his former fellowship.
It's as if they're painting him as this like divisive force,
Totally. Someone who's intentionally trying to like stir up trouble and undermine their authority.
Which, again, he denies.
Of course.
But it's interesting that so many of these accusations are about him challenging the established order.
That's a good point.
Yeah, whether it's, questioning the finances or speaking out against leadership or even just supporting people who've been kind of pushed to the side, within the organization.
And that actually brings us to what I think is the most chilling part of this whole thing.
Oh, man.
The claim that he was, marked as dangerous.
Wow.
And that anyone who associated with him, like, would be disciplined by the church.
Like they're trying to make him disappear.
Essentially, yeah.
Wow. That raises some serious concerns.
Definitely.
About the amount of, like, control and manipulation happening within this organization.
For sure. It really suggests this, like, culture of fear and intimidation,
Right.
Where people are just afraid to speak their minds or challenge, like, anything.
That brings us to this, I think, pivotal moment in this whole narrative, this interaction between the member who donated to Ron's GoFundMe and these two individuals, Patrick Smelly and Cheryl Chin, who, it seems like, were sent to investigate.
Right. That's an interesting encounter.
Yeah. I mean, it provides this glimpse into the tactics that this organization might be using to silence dissent and, like, enforce compliance.
I agree. It's not just about, like, addressing the accusations. It's about, like, discrediting him, isolating him, and making sure that nobody supports him.
It's not even just about Ron. It's like sending a message to everyone in that community, like, don't even think about questioning us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Create a culture of fear, create a culture of obedience.
Right. But there's another layer to this this incident that I think we should touch on. It sheds light on the organization's stance on financial matters, particularly their reaction to this member's donation.
Right. They seem to view any kind of support for Ron as a direct threat.
Yeah, it's like they believe they have this monopoly on both spiritual and financial resources within that community.
That's a great point.
And it makes you wonder, like, why are they so afraid of transparency when it comes to finances?
Yeah, like if they're really doing what's best for their members,
right?
Why wouldn't they be open about how they handled the money?
It's a question Ron keeps asking.
Yeah, and it's one they don't seem to want to answer.
No. And they accuse him of financial misconduct.
Right.
But they haven't actually given any evidence.
It's very just trust us kind of vibe,
Yeah, like you don't need to know the details. Just trust that we know what we're doing.
It's a classic tactic, to avoid accountability.
Right, and this all ties back into what we were just talking about. Power, control, manipulation. It seems like they're using all these different tactics to maintain their, like, grip on this community.
Oh, yeah.
From, like, spiritual pronouncements and social pressure to accusations and threats of discipline. It's a lot.
It's a multi-pronged strategy, that's for sure.
But remember, Ron is pushing back.
Right. He claims he's got the evidence.
Yeah, this hat evidence.
That's going to expose the truth.
That's the wild card.
It really is. What does he have? And how will he use it?
He's hinted at, like, financial stuff, cover-ups, maybe even illegal activities.
It sounds like he's got something that could really hurt them.
Yeah. It's a classic whistleblower scenario, right?
It is. He's risking a lot.
He is. So it all comes back to the fundamental question, who do we believe?
Yeah. Is he a truth teller? Or is he just out for revenge?
It's impossible to say for sure based on what we have now.
Yeah, we only have his side of the story from this letter. We haven't seen the accusations against him or heard from anyone else involved.
But we can analyze the patterns and the themes, right?
Yeah. And what we're seeing is not great.
No.
It looks like an organization that might be using his power in really bad ways.
Yeah. It's concerning.
It is.
And it makes you think about all the other religious institutions out there.
Right. Are there similar things happening in other places?
Exactly. Yeah. And how do we make sure they're held accountable?
Big questions.
They are. And how can we, as individuals, learn to recognize when this kind of manipulation is happening?
Right. Whether it's in a religious context or any other organization.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot to think about as we move into the next part of this deep dive.
Lots to unpack.
We'll explore these questions more.
For sure.
And try to figure out what it all means for this organization and its members.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we just dove headfirst into this whole saga with Ron, right? And his former religious organization. And wow, it's a tangled web for sure.
It is.
Accusations, denials. It's like, where do we even go from here?
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in all the little details. But I think it's helpful to like step back and look at the bigger picture. You know?
Right.
Like, what's the context? What's happening here? We're dealing with this conflict.
Yeah.
That's happening on so many levels.
Right.
So you've got the personal level where it's just Ron trying to like clear his name and expose what he sees as this injustice.
Right.
Then you've got like the organizational level
Yeah.
where it's a power struggle, you know, between the people in charge and the people who are challenging them.
Yeah.
And then there's like the societal level.
Yeah.
Where it raises all these questions about the role of like religious institutions in general.
Right.
And the potential for, you know, abuse and the need for accountability.
It's like those Russian nesting dolls.
Oh,
You open one up and there's another one inside.
another one.
And another one.
Exactly. Like it just keeps going.
And I think that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating, honestly.
Uh-huh.
It's not just about Ron and like whoever's accusing him.
It's about the systems and structures that allow this to happen in the first place, you know?
So true. So let's peel back another layer here.
Okay.
We left off talking about that incident with the member who donated to Ron's GoFundMe.
Right. And their encounter with Patrick Smelly and Cheryl Chin.
Yeah. It was chilling to hear that.
It was. It really shows you how far they might go to silence dissent and control everyone, you know?
Yeah.
It's not even about addressing the accusations against him at that point.
Uh-huh.
It's about discrediting him,
Right.
isolating him,
Yeah.
and making sure nobody sticks up for him.
And it's not even just about him, it's about everyone else too, right? It's like sending a message to the whole community, like, don't question us.
Exactly. Don't question our authority.
Yeah.
Do what we say.
Or else.
Yeah. Create that fear. Create that obedience. It's a powerful tactic.
It is. But there's another layer to this incident that I think we should talk about.
Okay.
Because it also gives us some insight into how they view finances. Okay.
Like their reaction to that donation to Ron's GoFundMe?
They're not happy about it.
No, not at all.
They see any kind of support for him as a direct threat.
Like they think they have the monopoly, right?
On the spiritual errandy of the financial.
Yeah. It makes you wonder, why are they so afraid of being transparent about money?
I know, it's a good question. If they're doing the right thing,
Right.
why not just be open about it?
It's what Ron keeps asking.
And it's the one question they won't answer.
No, they won't. They accuse him of financial misconduct,
Nah.
but they offer no proof.
None.
It's very much a just trust us vibe.
It is, yeah. You don't need to know.
We know what we're doing.
Classic way to avoid accountability.
Oh, right. And it all goes back to
The power. Yeah.
control, manipulation,
They're using so many tactics to maintain that control over the community.
spiritual stuff,
Yeah.
social pressure, accusations, threats.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole strategy.
Right. But Ron's pushing back.
He is. He says he's got the evidence.
Yeah, the hat evidence.
That's going to blow the lid off his whole thing.
That's the wild card in all of this, right?
It is. What does he have?
He's hinted at financial stuff, cover-ups,
Okay.
maybe even illegal things.
Wow. Sounds like he could really hurt them.
Yeah, it's giving, like whistleblower, right?
Total whistleblower. Big risk.
Huge risk. So we have to ask,
Got the big question.
yeah, who do we believe? Is he telling the truth?
Or is he just bitter
It's impossible to know for sure.
with what we have? Yeah.
We only have his side.
His letter.
Right. But we can at least analyze what we see.
We can. And it's not looking good.
No.
It paints a picture of an organization that's misusing its power.
In some really bad ways.
In some really bad ways, yeah.
And that makes you wonder, right?
It does.
What about all the other organizations out there?
Are there similar things happening?
Yeah, and how do we hold them accountable?
Big questions.
How can we, learn to recognize the signs of this kind of manipulation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can happen anywhere,
Yeah.
not just in religious groups.
That's true, yeah. So, a lot to consider as we move into the final part of this deep dive.
Definitely. Lots to unpack.
Man, we spent the last 2 parts, really untangling this whole conflict between Ron and this religious organization.
Yeah, we have.
And it's like, every time we pull on one thread,
2 more pop up.
2 more just, appear out of nowhere.
It's kind of like that hat evidence he keeps mentioning.
Oh, totally.
Like, we know it's out there. We know it's a big deal.
Yeah,
But he's holding it back.
right.
Almost like he's doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Letting the mystery hang in the air.
I'm starting to think the mystery itself might be, like, just as important as whatever the evidence actually is.
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's that whole I know something you don't know thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it keeps everyone guessing.
It's a power move for sure,
It is.
but it also speaks to that bigger thing we keep seeing,
Uh-huh.
this whole battle over information.
Right, who controls it?
Exactly. Ron's accusations, the hints he's dropping.
Yeah.
It's all part of his strategy to, like, change the narrative,
Right.
to challenge their version of what happened.
And it's working.
It is, to a degree.
Yeah. I mean, he's forcing them to respond,
Right, to defend themselves.
to engage with his claims.
Even if it's just through more accusations.
Yeah, exactly. He's like shaking things up,
He is. He's disrupting their narrative.
which is a threat to them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we've seen how they react to threats.
Right. Not well.
Not well at all. So it makes you wonder what happens next.
Yeah, what are the consequences of all this?
It could get messy, like really fast.
You think so?
I mean, he's hinted at legal action,
Uh-huh.
and if he releases that evidence, who knows what could happen?
Yeah, lawsuits, investigation.
Potentially even criminal charges.
Wow. That's intense.
It is. And even beyond the legal stuff,
Yeah,
there's the whole reputation damage to consider.
right. I mean, there's already so much division and distrust.
Yeah, this isn't going away anytime soon.
It's like a wound that just keeps getting, like, reopened.
Exactly. Even if Ron backs down or they try to make things right,
It's not going to heal easily.
no. And what about all the regular members?
Yeah, the people caught in the middle of all this.
They could face consequences too, you know, for speaking up or supporting Ron.
It's a valid point.
Yeah.
Social isolation, maybe even, like, getting kicked out.
It's a ripple effect, you know. It impacts everyone.
It does. Makes you wonder about the future of this whole organization.
Yeah, can they even recover from this?
Will they splinter?
Lose members, lose trust, lose influence.
It's hard to say. I keep thinking about Ron's final statement in that letter.
The one where he lists all the different perspectives.
Yeah, Kip's side, Elena's, everyone's.
It's like he's saying there's more to this than meets the eye.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that truth is complicated.
It is.
Even when things seem really clear-cut.
There's always more to the story.
Nuances, motivations.
Things we might not fully grasp.
Yeah. Maybe that's the biggest takeaway here.
What do you mean?
Just the need for, like, humility.
Okay.
A willingness to listen,
Uh-huh.
to understand that there isn't always a simple answer.
Right, it's not about winners and losers.
It's about trying to understand even when we disagree.
Well said. I think that's a great place to wrap things up.
This deep dive, it's taken us to some pretty dark places,
It has.
but it's definitely given us a lot to think about.
More questions than answers, I'd say.
Yeah, but isn't that the point of a good deep dive?
It is. It is. It's about the journey.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this one.